Sitting here today at Growers Choice Hydroponics with Sarah, and we'd like to have a little discussion on marijuana-infused topical creams. Uh, Sarah, what are the medical benefits of using a marijuana-infused topical, and what are some of the conditions that people say this works well on?
So some of the benefits are it cuts down on the amount of inflammation, so it can help you with pain management. I have found personally that it's effective for migraines or for back pain, arthritis. It works great for pinched disc, anything inflammatory based, psoriasis. You can use it quite safely, and it works pretty well.
So in essence, marijuana-infused topicals are good for reducing inflammation and basically anything that's pain associated with inflammation like arthritis. I've actually heard that it works really well on gout as well.
Oh,
So,
I completely forgot about gout because I don't have any personal experience with it, but yeah, it does work quite well with gout as well. So,
what are the ingredients in the topicals that you make?
okay, so I am using anything that I make, so I'm really careful about what I put into it, and don't want to pretend that I'm a expert or a medical authority, but I'm a nerd and I read a lot. So I just use, obviously I'm using the extract, and I do both decarbed and raw. I'm using keef because it makes it a little bit easier to measure. I use shea butter, olive oil sometimes, coconut oil, mango butter, grapeseed, and then the scent is all from essential oils, and sometimes I'm using scent. Essential oils also have terpenes. It will help with the effects of the marijuana extract, so I'm using essential oils as scent and for their actives as well.
So actually, a pretty simple ingredient list. Actually, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I also use beeswax. So the only contraindication would be if you're allergic to any of those things, or have like a bee allergy, or can't have honey.
Oh, okay, nice. How important is the strength of the marijuana in a topical to be effective?
Okay, so this was part of the reason why I started making my own, because on some of the commercially developed things you could get, they weren't listing the strain very much. I take into consideration the strain as well as the strength. I use my magic butter machine to make the extract in the beginning, and then I use that for the dosage, because the strength is important and you want something that has a high amount of actual active.
I've actually had customers say they didn't think that the topicals were effective when they used them, and then they got them from someone else that used a much higher dose of marijuana in the topical, and they found it to be very effective. So I think there's some correlationship between the strength of the marijuana in the topical for it to be effective, meaning that it really needs to be, I think, a little bit stronger than most people think or anticipate.
I think that is important. And the other thing is, when you use a topical, it doesn't make you high. So you can use a higher dose and you don't have to worry about anything, any psychological or physiological changes happening because it's a high strength, because you're not going to get high from it.
That's probably what keeps people from putting in too much. Probably they're maybe a little bit scared that they don't want to get a
and it's
strong
expensive
dose for it.
too.
Yeah, and the cost
well.
is cost prohibitive. Does it matter if the topical is pure CBD or a mixture of both CBD and THC?
Well, THC and CBD are only two of the actives in the most popular ones that people talk about, but there are 120 different actives. Like the terpenes have an effect, like linalool or limonene. Like there are other actives in there that work. For topical, I like to use something that does have the THC in it, especially since it doesn't. You're not absorbing it where it's going to have any of the psychological effects.
Yeah.
I think it does make a difference because you need to get all of the actives. That's why I use both the raw and the decarbed.
I've actually heard from quite a few customers that have used just a pure CBD topical, and they found it not to be very effective. Whereas when they switched to one that had CBD and THC, they said they didn't get high, but they found it to be much more effective. So I don't know exactly what the science is behind there, but from what I've heard is that the CBD and THC mixed together in the topical tends to work a little bit better for inflammation and pain management.
Yeah, it's easier to get hold of just CBD based products because the United States deregulated CBD, and you don't have to get it through a marijuana
Yeah,
grower.
sure.
So you can get a lot of things, especially if you're traveling to the States. Can you carry it over the border? Technically, you're not allowed to, but there's a lot of gray market products that are just CBD. I haven't found them very effective either.
Yeah. How much time does it take for someone to notice a positive effect from a topical?
I If you do it at a enough dose, I think that you do notice it right away. But the more that you use it, the better that it works.
I've heard from different testimonials from people. Some people have said 2 to 3 hours later, they've noticed a positive effect for certain conditions, like, for example, for gout or. But even me, myself personally, like, I have some arthritis in my lower spine, and I find that it almost takes 24 hours for it to soak in. And then it's almost like the pain is drastically reduced, if not gone. And then maybe one more application, and then it's really nicely taken care of.
Yeah.
But I find anywhere from like 3 hours to 24 hours, and I find you should notice a positive effect.
I've noticed about the same, or I will notice that I'm using it, and then if I take a day off, it kind of a little bit comes back, and then you have to get back on using it.
The other thing I noticed too is that when if I have some arthritic pain and I use a CBD topical for a couple days and then the pain goes away, then it seems like I don't really even need to keep using the CBD, but or the topical. But
Yeah.
but what ends up happening is after a week or two, the pain may slowly start to creep back. So it seems to have some kind of long-lasting effect once it's in your system. Like, in other words, I don't think you need to use it every day constantly.
Yeah.
Like, but again, that would be probably different depending upon your age and how severe your pain is.
And what
Like,
you're
like
using
if you're an 80-year-old lady with really severe arthritis in your hands, you may need to use a little bit every day in your hands.
Yeah.
But if you're, say, middle-aged, like 40, 50 years old, and you've got sort of a little bit of pain that sort of comes with the weather or when you've maybe twisted it, I find you can use it. It gets rid of the pain or manages the pain, and then you're good for a little while, and you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need it. So
Well, and the nice thing about topicals, you don't have to be in for the night or parked anywhere because it's not going to have any effect on you. So if something crops back up, you can apply it when you feel you need to use
yeah,
it.
you don't get high at all from
You don't. I think that's the
topical
biggest.
with THC in it. No, that's probably one of the biggest. I find that a lot of people who aren't really smokers, when you're trying to sell them on the effectiveness of a
Yeah.
topical cream for pain relief, their first inclination is that they think they're going to get high from it,
Right.
and they're apprehensive. But once they realize that they don't get high from it and they try it, I found that 95% of most people tend to be really happy with the way it works.
Yeah. You will get high if you eat it though, but it doesn't taste that great.
Yeah. How long does it take to make?
So really you're going to do it in steps, especially because you want to make sure that you are careful about the dosage. So I decarb my plant material. I decarb half of my plant material.
What
that
does
I'm going to
decarb
use.
mean?
So decarbing is you are heating the cannabis product up to a temperature that will turn the THCA into THC and the CBDA into CBD, so that it's bioavailable and something that your body can
So the
process.
temperature sort of activates
Right, and you can
the
find
properties.
great charts online because there are, you can do it at higher temperature for a shorter time depending on the effects you want again.
That's interesting.
Magic Butter Machine makes everything super easy because you can do it all as a one step. So I get my actives ready and then I dilute them with whatever material I'm going to use, the shea butter, olive oil, whatever thing I'm making at the time.
I'm guessing that technically it would be possible for someone to make a topical that they could also use as an edible.
You can. My concentrate, I like to infuse either olive oil or coconut oil, both of which you can eat. And then you can also use those to make edibles, which is its own little process.
Sure. But I guess you wouldn't want to put in the essential oils that give it a smell.
No,
So
you want to do all that separately because edibles, you want to make sure that everything you're using is food safe,
Sure.
but including whatever oil you're using to infuse. You can use oil or you can use alcohol for
the last
concentrate.
the last question I have is, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but I'm sure this is something that people are going to learn a little bit more as they go through trial and error.
Yep.
But I'm always getting people asking, is there any difference in the way a topical works depending on the strain that you use?
Well, anecdotally, for sure, I think it makes a difference as to what kind you're using. So what effect you want to get out of it, I think you need to take that into consideration.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Sarah, for coming in today. I appreciate
Oh, we're shaking hands.
appreciate